Let's go, Grandpa. We don't have all day. The voice cut through the morning, impatient, dismissive. The old driver didn't answer. He just wiped the mirror, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel. Same boots, same silence. But that morning, a young SEAL recruit froze mid-step. Because on the driver's forearm, barely visible under weathered skin, was the unmistakable mark of a SEAL trident. The recruit snapped to attention, and the driver, he just muttered, clocks ticking Salem, and the whole bus fell silent. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Coronado, California woke up slowly. The Pacific breeze carried salt through the air. Old palm trees swayed like they'd seen too many winters. On Ocean Boulevard, the waves rolled in with rhythm and patience, same as always. And at precisely 5:45 a.m., Bus 12 pulled up to the curb near the Naval Base gates. Right on time, it didn't matter if it was fog, heat, or rain coming sideways off the water. Bus 12 always came. It always stopped at the same angle, same hiss of brakes. Same door creak open, same man behind the wheel. His name tag said, R. Carter. Nobody called him that to most of the depot workers. He was just Old Man Carter, or Boots, thanks to the combat-style footwear he wore every shift in direct violation of transit dress code. Some joked the boots had more miles than the tires. He never laughed, never scolded either, just nodded once. If you said good morning, and once again exactly the same when you stepped off his bus. Raymond Carter didn't talk much. He didn't make small talk. He didn't need to. He drove Bus 12 like it was a mission, not a job. And if you watched him, really watched him, you'd see it the meticulous way he wiped the mirrors before every route. The quiet precision as he checked tire pressure. Wiped down the dash, tapped the gauges with the back of his knuckle. He didn't rush. He didn't dawdle. He just executed. Every morning without fail. 12 years, the depot manager once said, not a single late departure. Not during the winter flood. Not during the driver strike of 18. Not even when the base locked down for 72 hours. Guy's a damn machine, muttered. Ricky Dawson, a younger driver who liked to show off his smartwatch more than his steering. Probably dreams in routes and brake schedules. But there was something else about Carter. Something you couldn't quite name until the day Caleb Morgan stepped onto Bus 12 for the first time. Caleb had been in Coronado for less than 36 hours. Fresh transfer Navy recruit SEAL candidate. The kind that walks stiff from habit, not injury. He wore freshly pressed camis boots, shined like glass, and a posture like someone had taped a ruler to his spine. Still had the barbershop powder smell clinging to his collar. That morning he was the first to board Bus 12. Just him. Carter and the sound of the engine low and steady like a heartbeat. Morning, sir, Caleb said automatically, instinct pulling the words from him before his brain caught up. The driver said nothing. Didn't look at him. Didn't nod, just stared into the mirror, eyes locked ahead like they were tracking every movement on the street and in the reflection. Caleb saw the faintest flick of a glance, just one measured surgical. Caleb took the seat near the front, not too close, 2 rows behind the driver, enough to observe without drawing attention. He didn't know why, but something about Carter made him sit up straighter. Something in the way the man held the wheel. Not casually, not stiff, but like he'd been trained to hold control of things far more dangerous. And then there was the scan. Every 30 seconds or so, Carter checked the mirrors. Not quick glances, but deliberate sweeps. Left, center, right. Like clockwork. When a pedestrian stepped too close to the curb, Carter tapped the brakes before the threat even fully materialized. When a cyclist veered, Carter anticipated the movement 2 seconds before it happened. None of this seemed conscious, not forced. It was muscle memory, discipline buried so deep it had outlasted time. Caleb didn't say anything. He just watched how Carter shifted gears with economy, how his shoulders never fully relaxed even at red lights, how he adjusted his posture before each turn, like he knew exactly where the momentum would shift and when. It didn't add up. Most civilian drivers Caleb had seen were slouched half asleep, sipping drive-through coffee with their elbow on the window. But Carter, he was alert. Present, tactical. At the next stop, an elderly woman tried to climb aboard, groceries hanging off both arms. One of the bags ripped. Apples clattered across the metal steps, bouncing and rolling under the bench seat. Carter didn't sigh, didn't complain. He set the brake, powered down the doors, and stepped out, slow, steady, careful not to startle her. He gathered the apples one by one, placed them gently in the remaining bag, then offered it to the woman with both hands. No words, no smile, just quiet respect. She said thank you twice. He didn't respond. Just walked back to the front, started the engine and merged into traffic with the same seamless motion as before. The woman sat 2 rows behind Caleb Strangefellow. She whispered, smiling to herself, but kind. Caleb didn't answer. He was still thinking about that mirror sweep, the turn. Prep, the shoes, they weren't just boots. They were Belleville 390s tactical government issue discontinued 4 years ago. Only someone who'd worn them for decades would still use them by choice, and that jacket, no patch, no insignia, but it had that unmistakable navy cut broad across the shoulders. High collar, faded from sun and salt water. The signs were stacking up, too many to ignore. But Caleb said nothing, not yet. When they reached the naval training facility, he rose, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and paused near the front. Thank you for the ride, sir, he said again, quieter this time with purpose. For half a second, Carter's eyes met his in the mirror. Then they returned to the road. The next morning, Caleb boarded bus 12 again. Same time, same spot. This time he chose his seat more deliberately angled, where the sun filtered through the windows just right. And he waited. At 6:07 a.m. They passed a corner turn. The light cut across Carter's arm, landing perfectly on his left forearm, just where the sleeve was rolled up to mid-forearm. Not sloppily, not by accident, just enough to stay cool, or to reveal something. And there it was, faded, weathered, half hidden under sun-worn skin, but unmistakable. The outline of an eel perched on an anchor overlaid with a trident, the emblem of the United States Navy SEALs. Caleb felt his breath catch. The lines were older than ink should be. Probably done in country, maybe even before it was cool to have it. He waited for the next stop. 2 civilians exited, leaving the front half of the bus mostly empty. Caleb leaned forward just slightly. Just enough, he said quietly. Were you in? Carter didn't move, didn't flinch. The light turned green. The bus rolled forward. I was, he said, 2 words spoken like stone. But Caleb sat back, understanding the weight of what had just been given. Not to everyone, just to him. They didn't speak again for the rest of the ride, but it wasn't silence anymore. It was recognition. It was the acknowledgement of something shared across time. The bus rumbled forward like always. Tires hummed over asphalt. Wind rattled the doors, and no one else noticed, but Caleb did. That morning, a recruit boarded a city bus and found a legend sitting behind the wheel. And everything changed quietly, irrevocably, not through medals or speeches, but because a man rolled up his sleeve, and a boy knew what he saw. Caleb Morgan couldn't stop thinking about that tattoo. That single faded trident, like it had been carved into time itself, changed something in him. Not just what he saw, but how he saw it. He didn't tell anyone right away, not out of fear, not even respect. But because some things felt too sacred to hand over in words, still a week later during chow at the SEAL Preparatory Center, the words slipped out. Half a dozen recruits crowded around a long steel table, scooping scrambled eggs and joking about pull-up counts in push-up form, the usual noise, the usual bravado. Then someone cracked a line about riding the city bus, and Caleb, without thinking, said it. I take bus 12, he muttered, half distracted. Yeah, one guy said. That's the ghost bus, right? The one that runs at dark 30? Another laughed. My roommate says the driver's a robot. Caleb shook his head slowly. He's not a robot. The table quieted just a bit. He's different. What do you mean? Asked Zach Green, a lanky Texas kid with a crooked grin. Caleb took a breath. He's got a SEAL trident on his arm. The table fell silent. You sure? Zach asked, his tone different now, sharper focused. Caleb nodded. Saw it myself yesterday morning. Left forearm. No one laughed. Not now. Who is he? Someone whispered. Caleb didn't answer, just stared down at his tray, but the question didn't go away. By that afternoon, rumors had started to buzz through barracks, chat threads, and locker room conversations. Bus 12 SEAL trident. Old guy silent. Precise. You see the way he holds the wheel. Guy's got the 1,000-yard stare. I swear he didn't blink for 5 minutes. And then the big one, I heard he was a commander. Someone posted to a private Navy message board. Another cross-checked old names. Nobody had confirmation. Until the thread found Lieutenant Colonel James Whitaker, SEAL historian, naval intelligence. 2 decades in Black Ops. He didn't believe in coincidences. And the next morning, long before most of Coronado had finished their coffee, Lieutenant Cole Whitaker boarded bus 12. He wore full-dress uniform, medals polished, boots shined to a mirror. A presence built from earned respect. At exactly 5:45, bus 12 pulled up. The doors hissed open. Raymond Carter didn't look up, just tapped the brake and let the man climb aboard. The recruits already on the bus stood up, instinctively pressed by something they couldn't quite name. Whitaker didn't sit. He stepped forward, one arm steady at his side, the other resting gently on the back of the driver's seat. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. "Permission to ride, Commander," he said, voice clear and low. Raymond Carter's hands tightened just slightly on the wheel. The silence lasted 5 seconds. Maybe less, but it felt like 5 miles. "You got a seat," Colonel Carter said, eyes never leaving the road. Whitaker nodded and stepped back, taking the seat directly behind him. The rest of the ride unfolded like clockwork. Stops, starts, the hum of tires over concrete. Nobody said a word. Then halfway down the Pacific Avenue stretch, Whitaker leaned forward. "I reviewed the files," he said, just loud enough for Carter to hear. "Commander Raymond Carter, SEAL Team 2-3 Tours, Bronze Star with Valor." A pause, missing in action. "Twice, both times found. Both times you completed the mission before calling for extraction." Carter didn't flinch. "That man," he said, "finally retired a long time ago." Whitaker's answer was quiet. "Steady, that's not how it works," and for a moment something shifted in Carter's posture. Attention. A flicker of something old waking up, but it faded just as fast. He kept driving. That evening, Whitaker submitted a classified memo. Nothing dramatic, just a brief confirmation. Subject: Raymond. A Carter status. Verified role: former SEAL commander. Recommendation: no action required. Let him be, but word moved faster than paper. By Wednesday, Bus 12 was no longer half empty. At the Naval Base pickup point, 15 recruits waited in formation. Silent, straight-backed, boots squared against the curb. When Carter arrived, they didn't salute. They didn't speak. They just nodded one by one as they boarded. Respect without spectacle. Carter said nothing, but his eyes for the first time lingered, just a moment longer on each face. And then the door hissed shut and the engine rumbled on. Caleb kept riding. Every morning, same seat, same posture. But now a notebook rested in his lap. He didn't draw attention. He didn't try to talk. He just wrote. He checks mirrors every 30 seconds. Exact rhythm, pulls the brake before the danger appears, anticipates instead of reacts. Sleeve always rolled to the same height. Not sloppy, deliberate. It started as habit, became a journal, became something else. A record. Not of a man's past, but of how he chose to move through the world now. Not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as someone who refused to sleepwalk through life. Carter didn't speak often. But one morning as the bus rounded the far end of Point Loma, he caught Caleb's eyes in the mirror. "Eyes up," he said. Caleb blinked. Sir Carter nodded toward the window. "Maintain your situational awareness. Night drills fail because people stop scanning, that was all." But Caleb wrote it down, verbatim. That week a news reporter came to the depot, young, eager, too many questions. "Commander Carter," she said, cornering him after his shift, "we'd love to do a profile. You're inspiring. The community would benefit from your story." He paused only once. "No interviews," he said, climbing into the maintenance bay to wipe down the dashboard. "And it's just Carter now." She followed him halfway down the aisle. "You could help so many people. Your history." He turned, not angry, just steady. "Young people don't need to chase my story," he said. "They need to write their own." She left with an empty notepad, but something deeper in her chest, a respect she hadn't expected. At Mission Transit Center, the depot manager, Ed Lawson, had quietly ordered a plaque, small bronze, discreetly bolted to the driver bulletin board near the break room. It read, "To Commander Raymond Carter, whose silence taught us more than words ever could." Carter never commented on it. But that morning a janitor swore he saw the old man standing just a little straighter beside him. Not proud, just present. Back on bus 12, things began to change. Recruits cleared trash left by civilians, kept the front seats empty, spoke only in hushed tones. Once a teenager climbed aboard, phone blasting music, smacking gum, with the kind of confidence that only comes from never having been humbled. "Yo, Gramps," the kid said, slumping into the front row. "This bus always moved this slow. Some of us got places to be." Before Carter could respond, Caleb Morgan turned in his seat. "Watch your tone," he said, voice low but sharp. "That man bled so you could run your mouth." The kid blinked, startled, mumbled an apology, turned off his music. Carter didn't say a word. But in the mirror, Caleb caught it, the smallest nod, like approval, like trust. That night, Caleb wrote more than usual. Discipline doesn't bark, it breathes. He teaches with silence, with presence, with consistency, still on patrol. Just a different kind. And then in block letters across the page. This is what leadership looks like when no one is looking. By week's end, the SEAL Prep School sent a formal letter. A quiet invitation would Commander Carter speak at the next graduation. They received a response the next day. A single sheet of paper. Handwritten, some of the best men I knew never made it home. Don't salute me, salute them. The commanding officer framed it, hung it in his office. Beside the flag that had covered his brother's coffin, Caleb didn't understand it at first, the weight of what he was watching. But day by day, mile by mile, he began to realize Raymond Carter wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He was showing what it meant to stand steady after the battlefields, to serve with quiet, unwavering dignity in the middle of everyday noise, to move like everything still mattered, even when no one was watching, especially then. And Caleb, pen in hand, boots on the rubber floor, eyes up, was learning how to follow. By the time the third week came, Bus 12 didn't feel like a city route anymore. It felt like a procession. Each morning, the front half of the bus filled with service members, some active duty, others in faded caps with insignia, so worn they barely held thread. No one spoke above a whisper. No one wore earbuds. Even the usual sounds of Velcro and gear adjustment seemed to soften themselves in his presence. Raymond Carter never acknowledged it. He drove the same way he always had: mirrors, brakes, turn, signals, door open, door close. But the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was reverent. Even the civilians started noticing. A mother with a stroller hesitated before boarding, unsure if she was interrupting something sacred. A teenager with loud music paused at the steps, caught the atmosphere, and turned it off without being asked. There was something about the man behind the wheel. Something quiet, unshakable, heavy with meaning. And yet, if you asked Carter who he was, he'd tell you the same thing he told everyone. I'm just the driver. The story, or what little of it was known, began to move far beyond Coronado. It surfaced first on a Navy subreddit. A short post, no fanfare. There's a legend driving Bus 12 in California. Saw the ink myself, Trident Anchor Eagle. Old school, he confirmed it. Anyone know his story? Within hours, comments poured in. I think that's Carter, quiet guy. Always early. No mistakes. I rode with him once, didn't say a word, but I felt safer than I ever did in a convoy. A former SEAL named Marcus Denton saw the thread while waiting for a connecting flight. The name pulled at something in his memory. A whisper from a decade past. A mission long redacted. Carter. He made a call. An old teammate now working out of the Pentagon picked up. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then he's still alive. That weekend, Carter pulled Bus 12 into the base district as usual, only to find a line of recruits waiting in formation. 8 of them. Not in uniform, just standing at parade rest. When the doors opened, they stepped on board one by one. No salutes, no comments, just nods, eyes level. Silent acknowledgement. One of them, a young man in a baseball cap, started to raise his hand in a salute but stopped himself. Halfway through, Carter didn't speak, but his eyes stayed on each of them longer than usual in the mirror, long enough to say, I see you. I remember the following Monday at 5:44 a.m. Colonel James Whitaker returned, but this time he wasn't alone. Walking beside him, dressed in full formal uniform, was Senator David Langford, head of the Armed Services Committee, former SEAL Carter's subordinate once long ago in a jungle half a world away. They stepped onto Bus 12 without introduction. The recruits already seated stood without being told. Langford moved to the front, didn't speak, just stood beside Carter for a long moment. The bus didn't move until the door closed. Finally, the senator extended a hand. Carter looked at it, then slowly reached out. Their hands met, old scars beneath fresh seams, battles shared and buried. No speeches, Langford said. Carter nodded. Didn't plan on one. They sat a road in silence, and at the end of the line, Langford stood, placed a small coin on the dashboard, and walked off without looking back. Carter stared at the coin. It was a challenge coin. SEAL Team 2, dated from the year of their most dangerous deployment. He didn't pocket it. He left it there. Unmoving, unspoken. A relic of trust. That evening, Caleb Morgan watched from his usual seat, notebook in hand. He didn't write anything, just watched Carter's reflection in the mirror. Watched the way the old man's eyes flicked toward the coin and then away again. Watched how nothing in his routine changed. Not a beat, not a second, but something had changed. Caleb could feel it, and so could the rest of the town. Mission Transit Center noticed first. The depot manager, Ed Lawson, confirmed Carter's identity through military public records. He didn't make an announcement. He didn't send an email. He just had a bronze plaque installed beside the driver bulletin board. It read, "To Commander Raymond Carter, SEAL Team 2, who taught us that silence can lead." Carter saw it the next morning. He said nothing, didn't touch it, didn't ask. But the text swore he stood by it for a full minute longer than usual before heading out. And then came the moment that would define it all. A Tuesday morning, gray skies, cold wind, Bus 12 pulled up to its usual stop near the naval base. A teenager stood at the curb, headphones and backpack sagging, hoodie up. He climbed aboard with loud music still playing through tiny speakers clipped to his strap. "Yo, this thing ever move faster," he said. "Some of us got somewhere to be." Carter didn't respond, didn't react, but Caleb did. From halfway down the aisle, he turned. His voice was low. "Steady, watch your tone." The kid blinked. "What?" Caleb stood, quiet, controlled. "That man bled for your freedom to talk," he said. "Don't dishonor it." The kid turned red, mumbled something, lowered the volume, sat down. Carter said nothing, but in the mirror he met Caleb's eyes, and for the first time gave him a slow, single nod. One recruit, one gesture, one acknowledgement, and Caleb felt it down to his boots. The next week, the SEAL Prep School sent another letter. A formal request: would Commander Carter speak at our graduation ceremony? The reply came back in 3 lines. "With respect, I decline. Some of the best men I knew never came home. Don't salute me. Salute them." The school framed the note and mounted it on the wall above their roll call room. No one dared take it down. One afternoon, a high school teacher who'd heard the story started a new curriculum unit, Modern Valor in Silence. She asked her students, "What does courage look like when no one is clapping?" They studied Carter like a historical figure. Except he wasn't gone. He was driving Bus 12 every single morning. And then came the visit no one expected. A Thursday morning, overcast skies, thin light. Bus 12 pulled up to its stop near the base gate. Only one man stood waiting. No backpack, no uniform, just a dark suit, a slight limp, and the bearing of someone who'd never forgotten what it meant to serve. Carter recognized him immediately. Didn't smile, didn't blink, just opened the door. The man stepped inside, placed a hand gently on the dashboard, didn't say his name, didn't need to. It was Colonel Richard Monroe, retired. He paused, then laid a folded flag across the seat behind Carter. No ceremony, just reverence, thought. "This belonged here," Monroe said. Carter nodded once. "Thank you, Colonel." And with that, Monroe stepped off the bus. The door hissed shut. The flag remained folded tight in a triangular case resting against the wall behind the driver's seat. No explanation offered, none needed. The next morning, every military passenger boarded with a hand over their heart. No one sat in the front row. No one dared. Caleb wrote the moment down in his notebook that night. A folded flag doesn't just say goodbye. It says someone came home, even if only in memory. Later that week, Carter drove the evening shift with fewer passengers. The streets shimmered with rain. Streetlights flickered. And yet his routine never changed. At the final stop, as the last civilian stepped off, Carter reached up and adjusted the mirror. In the reflection, Caleb sat alone at the back. Carter held his gaze, then for the first time he spoke without prompting. "Maintain your situational awareness," he said. Caleb blinked. "Yes, sir. That's where most recruits fail." Carter added, "They stop looking when it's quiet." Caleb swallowed hard. "I won't, sir." Carter nodded once. The bus hissed open. Caleb stepped off, and the door closed behind him like the end of a chapter, but not the end of the story. Winter arrived early that year in Coronado, the kind of cold that creeps in through seams, not dramatic, just steady, unforgiving. 12 still ran. Rain or wind, dark or dawn. It arrived each morning at 5:45 like always. Until one Tuesday it didn't come. There was no warning, no detour sign, just an empty stop at the base gate and a long silence stretching into the mist. Caleb Morgan. Now Ensign Morgan, a full-fledged SEAL, stood there alone, checking his watch out of habit. Others joined: recruits, officers, veterans. They waited 5 minutes, then 10. At 14 minutes past the hour, someone quietly said what no one wanted to say. "He's never missed a day." 3 days passed without Bus 12. The substitute drivers were competent, professional, but the route felt wrong. Too fast in the turns, too much chatter in the back, too much noise and not enough presence. Then on the 4th morning, Bus 12 returned. Same hiss of brakes, same mirror adjustment, same boots. Raymond Carter stepped off the vehicle lift and into the driver's seat as if nothing had happened. But something had behind him, secured gently to the wall above the wheel well, was a triangular wooden case. Inside a perfectly folded American flag. Caleb saw it the second he boarded. He didn't ask. No one did. But every person on the bus that morning, military and civilian alike, felt it settle in the air. Like solemn smoke, Caleb removed his cap, held it against his chest. The others followed without needing to be told. And for the next 40 minutes, the only sound was the hum of tires on wet pavement and the quiet rhythm of breathing. No music, no small talk, just respect. After that, the flag stayed. It never moved, never shifted, and Carter never explained it. But people understood because the case said more than words ever could. Someone had gone home, someone who mattered, someone who had been part of the route. Time as it does move forward. 3 years passed, Coronado changed, recruits became officers, officers deployed, returned, deployed, and again. But Bus 12 remained the same. Raymond Carter, Tau, nearing 80, never missed a shift. His hands aged, his stride slowed, but his routine never faltered. Same mirrors, same gear shifts, same silent nods. Every morning he showed up. Every morning he drove like the mission hadn't ended until the letter arrived. A quiet note from the Transit Authority, stamped and sealed, retirement date March 18th. Final route Bus 12. No ceremony requested. He didn't post it, didn't mention it, but word got out. Caleb now, Lieutenant Caleb Morgan, was the first to hear. He didn't tell anyone at first, just sat with it, let it settle. But somehow, without text or email, the news spread across base housing, through locker rooms, across veteran groups. All whispered the same thing. He's stepping off the route on his final morning. Carter arrived before dawn. Like always, wiped the mirrors, checked the gauges, adjusted the seat. He didn't expect anything different. But when he pulled up to his first stop, every seat was already filled. 40 people, no chatter, no uniforms. But you could tell. You could always tell. Veterans active duty, SEALs, Marines, Navy, Army. Every single one sat in silence, hands folded, eyes forward. When Carter opened the doors, no one moved. When he looked into the mirror, they were already watching. He didn't say anything, just shifted into gear and pulled forward. Stop after stop, no one got off. More boarded until the aisles filled. Some stood holding rails like it was basic training. Again, no one complained. No one checked their phones. It wasn't a bus that morning. It was a moving monument at precisely 6:23 a.m. Bus 12 pulled into Mission Transit Center one final time, but the depot was different now. The lot had been cleared, and in its center stood a newly installed stone monument, simple square, with bronze lettering that read, "Heroes don't announce themselves, they drive the route every day." Carter pulled the brake, switched off the engine, and for a long moment just sat there. The passengers didn't move until the doors opened with a final hiss. One by one they stepped off. And instead of walking away, they turned, forming two silent rows down the length of the lot. No salutes, no words. Just rows of quiet men and women standing at attention, waiting. Carter stepped off, boots on pavement, hands empty, eyes steady. As he walked through the line, no one moved, but every face held something unspoken. "Thank you. We see you led well." At the edge of the lot, a navy blue pickup truck idled quietly. The door opened. Caleb Morgan stepped out. No longer the wide-eyed recruit from 4 years before. He wore civilian clothes now, but the bearing hadn't changed. He met Carter's eyes, offered a soft smile. "Need a ride?" Commander Carter paused, nodded once. "Appreciate it, Lieutenant." They climbed in. No fanfare, no engine rev, just the hum of gravel under tires as they drove away. That afternoon, someone from the local Navy paper posted a photo, a long shot. Carter walking toward the truck, 2 rows of service members behind him still standing. The flag in the window glinting faintly in the morning sun. The caption read, "A quiet man." A bus, a salute to silence. It went viral within hours across military circles. Then farther civilians started sharing it, not because they knew his story, but because they recognized something in the image. Dignity, discipline, devotion, without need for applause. Caleb never stopped writing in the notebook. After Carter retired, he kept the habit lines, moments, lessons. He titled the last entry, simply March 18th, final route. Then wrote, "He never asked for followers, never asked to be remembered, but every one of us still scans the mirrors because of him. Every one of us sits up straighter when we ride the bus. Every one of us leads quieter because of Raymond Carter. A year later, on the anniversary of his final route, the SEAL Prep School held a small gathering. Nothing formal. No stage, just coffee. Folding chairs. A banner taped to the wall that read, "Service without spotlight." Caleb was asked to say a few words. He didn't prepare a speech. He just stood up, took a breath, and said, "I once met a man who drove a bus like it was a battlefield. Not because he was stuck in the past, but because he understood that how you carry yourself when no one's watching, that's the true measure of who you are." He paused, and he never stopped carrying us. They say the flag still hangs inside bus 12. The new driver keeps it dusted, untouched. They say veterans still sit in the same seats, and that every new recruit who boards is told, "Sit tall." That's where Commander Carter used to ride, and they do not. Because it's a rule, but because it's right. Because in a world chasing noise and titles, there was once a man who drove a bus without saying a word and changed everything. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Grateful Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.